Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our retrospective review. We are Get Your Geek On. I'm Robert. That's Aaron. We're here to talk about Pixar's Up, released in 2009.
It's old.
It's not that old. A little over a decade. So this movie was actually the first Pixar movie to be nominated for Best Picture. Not just Best Animated Picture, but Best Picture. Okay. It's only the second animated movie to receive that honor behind 1991's Beauty and the Beast.
Ooh.
So we're going to talk about it, and I think you've got some strong feelings. I believe I have seen this movie before, but I think this was your first watch.
Yes, my very first watch on it.
Tell me what your thoughts are.
I have no soul. Because, and again, I think, like we said, 11 years ago when this movie came out, everyone was like, oh, it's so depressing, So I already knew what was happening when it opened up.
Sure.
So that didn't hit me anywhere near as hard as I guess it should have. Like, it hit everybody else.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, okay, well, yeah, she's going to die. And there it goes. Okay, she's dead. And that was it.
That's not even the saddest part of the montage, though.
What's the saddest part?
The baby? Yeah. That whole sequence.
That didn't hit me either. And again, I think it's because, I already knew.
Spoilers, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. 11 years ago. Come on.
Well, you hadn't seen it.
True. That is true. I think because I was already knew what was going to happen. I knew she was going to die. Mm-hmm. I knew she could get pregnant.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't know, but I could see it a mile away, was the book, how when... My Adventures or whatever, and he turned. I knew that was going to happen. Sure. I was just waiting for it.
Yeah, well, and it's really interesting because I think I had gotten this movie mixed up a little bit with Tangled, which I love, but there's that running theme in there about dreams, and at the end, he says, "You were my new dream." Yeah, and I for some reason I thought that in this book it said you were my adventure, so I was waiting for that to happen. And then it was still a beautiful moment. It was still those pictures and stuff, and it was and I think the note was thanks for taking me on an adventure. Go find another one.
Yeah.
So it's still very similar. But I think in my brain I was like, oh, I thought it was you were my adventure. I thought that's what it said. But so you didn't. It didn't hit you emotionally.
Nope, not at all.
So, without that hitting you, it was more of just this is just a...
Yeah, it was... Okay. It was an okay movie. And even the villain was so terrible for me. Okay. I hated the whole villain aspect. And again, I think at this point... So, in the opening scenes, we see him as a kid. And then we see her as a kid. We see their idol.
Right.
We assume... Just assuming he is 20 years old. Say he did all this by the time... Which he's not. There's no way.
Right. Yeah.
And then
there's some timeline issues
here.
Because reading the synopsis of it, at the time the movie takes place, our main character, and I'm blanking on his name now, Carl Fredricksen, is supposed to be 78.
Yeah.
So that means, let's just say they were 10. Which I think is a little generous. I don't think they were quite 10. They were probably under 10.
I mean, you could maybe give her 10, maybe, but he's not 10. I don't think he'd be 10.
Yeah, but let's be generous. Yeah. Let's say they were 10 years old, and this guy was 25. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's a 15-year age gap, which means he would be 93.
Exactly.
He's moving around pretty good. I mean, maybe that South American air and, whatever the food his dogs are making for him. And so this is what I'll say. So, obviously, this being your first time, it didn't hit you real hard.
No.
I remember that montage, and really, I would say it's the first 20 to 25 minutes, I think, are really strong. You get that opening of them as children, and then it goes into the montage of them, living their life together, and of course, it's designed, isn't that always the way? He buys the tickets. He's gonna finally take them, and that's when she falls ill, and and
did they say what she died of? No, right?
They don't. Okay. And you can see later in the movie, he still has the tickets on his mantle, that's still
like that.
And he clearly hasn't been able to move on. He hasn't been able to live his life beyond his wife Ellie. And so I think the establishment of all of that I thought was really good.
Yeah.
I thought that, again, the opening of the movie, the montage, it does hit me in the feels. I get a little teary during that portion. And then really I would say once the house floats away, I mostly lose interest.
Same.
the stuff where he's kind of dealing with the construction guys, and it's the mailbox, which clearly has emotional. He has history with that mailbox, and that gets damaged, and he kind of overreacts a little bit, and that whole scenario. It rings true. I mean, it rings very like, wow. I mean, that's the type of thing that could happen very easily, and so that was like that was all working for me.
Yeah. I'll give you that.
But really, once the house floats away and it's him and Russell, and I just like that part just didn't. I didn't see their connection being very strong. I don't care for like the talking dog works for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's cute for the first moment.
And then I'm like, oh man, this is getting old quick.
And then they even have to use the chipmunk voice to try to help it too.
Right.
And I was like, oh, cute, haha. And it's overplayed now. Like, really quickly overplayed.
It definitely it is too much. I think that, again, the movie itself overall is okay.
It is.
And I think that this is actually the thought that I had when I was watching is this is the most adult movie that Pixar's ever made. I mean, our protagonist is an adult.
Yeah.
And so they have to surround him with a silly child, with a talking dog, with a funky looking bird, with all these things to make it appeal to kids.
Exactly.
But those are all the things that I don't care about.
Yeah.
Like I'm like invested in 78-year-old Carl and how he's going to move beyond into the next stage in his journey. But I'm not caring for all of the kiddie things that are coming along with it. I understand why they're there. I get it, but that doesn't appeal to me.
And I'm the same way. I liked Carl a lot. And the only time I would like Russell is when he got kind of that serious moment for like those little couple seconds when my dad would sit on the curb. And I'm like, holy crap, is your dad dead? And I know he says he's on a business trip, but he's never there. Well, and I want to know if they're both dead. Like, his mom's dead, obviously, because he never says his mom.
No. His mom's in the crowd.
That's Phyllis, I think.
Oh, yeah, it might be a stepmom.
The stepmom. Okay. And so I wonder what could be dead wrong. Maybe someone will clarify. I think both of his parents are dead.
I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, we don't know. We don't really know what happened to his father, whether it was maybe he's just an absentee dad.
Yeah.
The parents went through a divorce. Maybe, who knows?
I mean, he talks about business. He's always away on business.
Right.
But do you tell a little... I mean, he's obviously very young. You tell him right away, oh, your mom died, and then like maybe a few months later, your dad dead. That's at this kid.
Yeah, maybe they both died.
Exactly.
In the same accident or something.
Yeah, and that was the only time I was invested in Russell when he started getting that serious, like, my dad, my mom, and I was like, oh my god, like the mom I thought was dead off the bat. I was like, okay, and he talked about his dad and this whole scene on the curb, and I'm like, oh man, like I feel for that kid. Like that's a cherishing. Like you have as kids, you have those moments, like you say, those adult moments. Yeah. That when you grow up, you don't realize what they are until you're older, and it's like, man, I do miss sitting on.
Well, I think he even says that the kid says like, I miss the boring moments.
Exactly.
And you can tell
that hit hard.
And you can tell that hit Carl hard too, because if you look at like that montage, a lot of it was the boring moments.
Exactly.
It was painting the walls. It was holding hands while they were reading books. Mm-hmm. It was, all those stuff. It wasn't like they were doing all these great adventurous things.
Exactly.
They were just living a normal life.
Exactly.
And he misses every moment of it.
And I think that's the only time the movie hit me hard.
Okay.
It was when he said that boring moment, and I was like, oh shoot. Like that's true, because we don't think about it later. And that's why I think, again, the adult side of him comes out. But then you turn around and get the whole, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be goofy again. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that there are elements of this movie that work really well. For me, the first 20, maybe 30 minutes work really well. I think that the emotional payoff at the end where he has to leave behind everything about his previous life.
Yeah.
All of it.
All of it's gone.
He has to leave his home, all of his keepsakes, everything that reminds him of his wife. Mm-hmm. He has to leave it all behind in order to go, save Russell and Kevin. That's his mission. And then, of course, Russell brings the house back, and there's the whole, everything kind of gets all up in the air, and the house ends up on the waterfall, and that's kind of a cute moment.
I thought that was a nice, crown touch.
Yeah, so I think overall the movie is okay. It's good. I definitely, this being nominated for Best Picture, when I think about, you know, the movies that get nominated for Best Picture, and there's only been 2 animated movies, I go, Beauty and the Beast. I think that deserves it.
Yes.
Up, I go, nah. No. You know, it's good. I don't even think it's among Pixar's, you know, top 5 or maybe even top 10 movies.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie, but Pixar's had so many other great movies, and this one is kind of like, meh. Again, I love the opening. I think that montage is a thing of beauty. I know it didn't hit you as hard, but I can see why certainly, people like it. You know, like for me, I remember watching it the first time and then seeing it again.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it hit me, I guess, maybe a little bit because, you know, my grandfather lost his wife when she was much younger than Ellie is portrayed in this movie. It kind of only seems like it's been a few years for Carl at the time that this story takes place. And, you know, my grandfather, you know, I never knew my grandma. I grew up knowing my grandfather.
Yeah.
And he passed away when I was about 19. But I never knew my grandmother. Like, she passed away before I was born. And so it was kind of like the first time this movie came out was shortly after my grandfather died. And like, so I kind of identified with it a little bit in that way. Like, oh, that, you know, that could have been my grandfather, like that.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Now, he had 11 kids, so it wasn't quite a parallel. But, you know, like there was definitely some element of that I think helped me connect emotionally to Carl.
Exactly. And I think those help people like yourself and others out there. I've lost so much family before watching this movie. I mean, like I said, I didn't see it 11 years ago. 11 years ago, I would have been 23.
Yeah.
It would have hit me differently probably.
Sure.
Back then, not knowing what to expect going into this, hey, just go see it. It may have hit harder. Yeah. And now, you know, I'm 34. I've been through a lot. And at this point, I do have a morbid sense of humor. I always tell people I'm a little morbid. And on top of that, I already knew what was going to happen. Yeah. So it's like my mind was already... You know she's gonna die. You know this. So mentally, I was prepared. Probably and not even realizing it. Maybe subconsciously, I was prepared.
Sure.
So I'm like, cool. All right, he's dead. All right, but I did like it. Like I will say, I did enjoy how they presented it.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I mean, I think I liked the first 20 minutes and maybe like the last 10, 15 minutes of it.
Yeah.
Everything else was kind of like you. The birds, okay. Doug was cute for a minute. The squirrel voice was cute for a minute. But then there were so many questions. The guy's like you say, he's 90-something years old, but he's moving around like he's 60.
And all the dogs like being able to do all of these crazy things, like preparing meals, and like it's just like you're like okay. And again, that's the stuff that's for kids.
Exactly.
Like, I get it. And in a movie that only has like 4 human speaking characters,
exactly.
Like I understand, but it is also like all right.
There was 2 Easter eggs. I think one's an Easter egg, but the first one I saw. The dogs flying the plane. That was the X-wing scene from Star Wars, right? Where he's like Red One chicken in or whatever.
Yeah.
Was that was an Easter egg for them? I think, right?
I mean, it's a call. Yeah, it's an homage.
Yeah, homage.
Yeah.
And I think, and it could just be me. Maybe I'm a Highlander fan. I love Highlander. The homage with the sword versus the like walking stick.
Oh yeah.
Reminded me. The cane reminded me of the Queen music video for Princess of the Universe. A sword versus a mic staff.
Sure.
And I was like, I wonder if that's what they were kind of going with. Maybe that's kind of okay. Maybe it was paying homage to it. But I love the Star Wars reference. I was like, that's the freaking Star Wars. Like again, not a huge Star Wars fan, like I've always said, but I even knew that one.
And I will say that. The squirrel joke grates on me.
Really?
But that's a great payoff when he does it when they're in the planes.
Oh yes.
And so that's a great payoff to the joke. Every time it's used before that, I'm like, all right, like I know we get it. Dogs love squirrels and they get distracted and blah blah blah. But
that's how he takes.
But that being the way that he defeats the dogs in the plane.
Perfect.
Like that was a good payoff.
Because I was like the same way until I saw him do it then, and I was like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
And I did like that the squeaky toys what shot the guns. They'd have to chew on that squeaky toy.
Yeah.
Like,
that was funny.
Okay, and that was the only time the dogs paid out for me, because in my mind was also like, there's like 30 dogs, and I get the whole, they kept talking, he has his 5 dogs. I'm like, dogs live about 15 years or so, 20 years. This is like 4 or 5 generations later.
Clearly there's no way. Generations of dogs. Like he's been breeding them. Don't worry about
it. But there's only 5. Okay.
Don't worry about it. Dogs have big litters. They have like 7 or 8 dogs at a time.
But I mean, there's all these like so many before it becomes inbred. They should have all been a little, wonky. I mean, I guess Doug.
I guess they kind of were.
Doug, so.
All right. Well, so those are basically our thoughts about Up. So let's give, wrap it up and final score. Aaron, go.
So I'm going to do it 2 ways. One, I'm going to do it the way I think I should have if I didn't know anything, and then the way I do see it now.
Okay.
I would say give it like a 6.3, but if I didn't know anything going in. Mm-hmm. Like I will give the first 20 minutes. They did it perfectly. They talked about her death, blah, blah, blah. Again, the last 15, 20 minutes, maybe. I loved. The rest of it's just bland to me. As knowing going in that what was going to happen, I barely give it a 5. Because, again, it didn't hit me at all. Until, like you said, we both said, until the boring moment comment. That was when all of a sudden my emotions were like, crap, okay. So
I think we're pretty similar on your first score. Again, I've seen this before. I think that I've watched the opening to this movie a lot of times. But I don't enjoy most of what happens after that. And so I usually turn it off around the time that they get up in the house and it's going, through the storm and all that stuff. That's usually the point where I go, okay, I don't need to see anymore because I know I don't enjoy that part moving forward.
Exactly.
So I've seen that montage probably, 6 or 7 times. That opening. And I really do think that is a beautiful piece of cinema. If this was a short film that was, kind of up to that point, and then you would have to have some sort of different resolution, obviously. Get you to the place that you are by the end of the movie. And that was like a 20, 30-minute movie, it would be perfect.
I think you could, yes.
But it's not. There's another hour of things that I don't really care about.
Almost filler,
And so, overall, I think this movie comes in around, I would say, probably about a 6.5 for me. Again, that opening is brilliant. And this is not a movie for kids.
No,
I don't
think so.
I think, once you get past the part that I love, it's a movie for kids. But I don't think a kid is going to get hooked in that first 20, 25 minutes. I think they're going to be checked out. And
they will,
And that makes it a little bit hard to enjoy this with your kids because, to me, I love the opening. Kid's not going to want to watch it. And then as soon as it gets to the part where the kid's going to like it, I'm not going to enjoy any of it. This movie has 2 very different tones. And again, I think it does a good job at the end of bringing them together and paying it off. But it's not a consistently great movie. It's a great movie at the beginning. It's a meh movie in the middle. And then it's a good movie at the end. And unfortunately, I think that leaves it around a 6.5 for me. So, again, it's not a bad movie.
No.
But
it's not
I think Pixar's done a lot of really great stuff. Maybe the next one we're talking about will fall under that. It's actually going to be Brave. That's the next movie we're talking about. So drop your comments down below. Let us know what you think of Up. Are we crazy? Is this the best movie Pixar's ever had? Maybe you don't like it at all. It's the worst one. Let us know. Again, like, comment, subscribe. And so for Get Your Geek On, thank you for joining us and stay geeky.